Alright, I gotta make this quick because apparently I can't video for very long with my phone. But a couple of guys have contacted me about tuning, especially after they saw that video with the guy pulling, and I'm not gonna criticize him because he's probably one of the nicest guys in the industry. But pulling a bow from, you know, different knock points and hitting, you know, and the cams hitting the same time, that's what he wasn't showing you is the angle of the riser. That's the important part. I don't have time on this phone to make all those, you know, to do, unfortunately, everything I gotta say. But this is the point that I'm gonna make about tuning. You guys are killing yourselves, and I don't understand why. Make sure your timing's right on your bow. That's why I went to a bow tech. I also made a comment it's easier to tune the bow to the arrow than the arrow to the bow. Because a lot of people, they do things backwards, and I don't understand that either. That was the best part about being part of that analytical laboratory, is learning how to test things, you know, not just making an assumption and saying, oh, this is the way it has to be. The very first question out of his mouth was, well, why do you say that? Well, because it works. And he goes, well, before you can say something has to be done a certain way because it works, first you have to prove to me that it doesn't work another way. And if you can prove that it works another way, then your theory is no good. So anyway, this is my X cutters that I shoot for 3D. And I'm shooting 80 yards. Sweet. 318s that I won Reading with in 2000. Yeah, they're that old. Same mass weight though. Man, the arrows fly good. 318s. I think it says 560 on them, so I'm assuming it's a 560 spine. They fly good. These are 400s, Pierce 400s, and this is what I'm shooting in Reading. Same mass weight. The reason they're all the same mass weight is because I'm looking for a particular speed. Ooh, that took the knock off of that one. Alright, so quickly, before time runs out, I'm going to show you right here that, I don't know if you can see, that's the X cutter, that's the 18, and that's the 400 Pierce. A couple days ago, that was a bullet hole. A couple days ago, that was not. The point I'm trying to make here is that while everybody is so focused on trying to get a bullet hole, at the same time they're like, well, you gotta torque tune. Well, I do torque tuning too, but what are you doing when you're doing torque tuning? The only thing you're doing is moving your arrow at rest. But at the same time, if you guys have ever shot your bow through paper, when you're doing torque tuning, you find out right away that when you torque your bow to the left, you get a right tear, and when you torque your bow to the right, you get a left tear, and when you don't torque, you get a bullet hole. So how is it that we can forcibly put a tear into a bow, but somehow fix the bow so that when we do get a left or right tear, when torque tuning, the arrow still hits downrange in the same place as a perfect bullet hole? If that doesn't tell you right there that how the arrow tears is irrelevant to its impact, because I've been shooting tournaments where going into the tournament it was a bullet hole, and by the end of the tournament it was like a 2-inch high left tear, depending on the weather or whatnot. So here we go. Oh yeah, get you some of that. And that's 80 yards. So anyway, the point is that instead of worrying so much about how we can make the arrow shoot to the bow, we need to worry about how to get the bow shoot to the arrow. It's a dummy spring with a closed circuit. It's once you figure out how to minimize the human element involved with that bow, you will be better off served than trying to figure out how to make a particular arrow shoot with the bow. Last 2 weeks, this guy's been calling me up and saying, oh, the shop told me I got to shoot this arrow with this bow and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, why? He was shooting good scores. He just wasn't getting a bullet hole. And I said, well, what you need to do in order to get a bullet hole out of that bow is you got to shoot this arrow with this point weight. But when you get a bullet hole, you're not going to get a bear shaft out of that bow. So sure enough, 30 minutes later, he sends back a text message and says, man, look at this. And he sends me a picture of an absolute bullet hole. He thanked me all the way up until yesterday. He's still so excited. Now, I don't know if his scores have gone up, but that placebo in his mind has made it such that, you know, he's elated. You know, his scores may not go up. They may go up. I dare say that they will likely go up because he feels better about things. But 3D is a perfect example. You got people out there shooting great big arrows, and they have these little tiny arrows in their bow, and they have two separate sight marks, one on one side of the bow, one on the other side of the bow, but their left and rights don't change. They're still shooting right down the middle with a skinny arrow or a big arrow, and you can say, oh, well, they're the same spine, but, you know, if you believe that, you haven't really tested that. It's, so anyway, that's just a little short snippet before the time runs out on there. With that particular thing, the key is your knock. And if ever you've done any knock testing, the best way to do that knock testing is with a torqueless D-loop. You want to see how your knock affects the tune of your bow, and it doesn't change the impact of the arrow, is run that knock all the way down on top, and then every shot run the top knock off of it. And the looser it gets, the tear changes. And it's most of that is caused by the oscillation of the string. It's like arrow clocking. That's caused by the oscillation of the string. That's not a spine thing. But again, I can't convince, you know, if you got it in your mind that that's the way things work, then that's fine. I can't change your mind. But what I will say is that maybe at some point it might be a wise idea for people to focus more on themselves and less on the tuning. You know, I even had a lady, I'm not attacking her, but she wanted me to make a piece of jewelry with the 20 steps of archery. In 30 years of all my note keeping, at best I could come up with 5 steps of archery. And now we've complicated it to the point where we have 20 steps of archery. How are we expected to remember all that? You know, it's like the form thing. Form is the biggest joke to me, because form goes out the window when you're shooting up and down hills. There is no form. You're shooting in Wales and you're shooting off of one knee, or you're shooting 50 degrees uphill. Where's your form then? You know, form isn't even remotely as important as the moment of release, from the time the release breaks to the time the arrow exits the string. That is the most important thing. Far immeasurably outweighs form. Form to me doesn't mean anything, because you can look at every archer down the range, you know, and go, oh, that guy doesn't look like that guy, or that guy doesn't look like that guy, and that guy's beating that guy, and that guy's got terrible form, whatever. Archery isn't about perfecting the mechanical items. Archery is about perfecting the human element, because the mechanical item is a dummy spring with a closed circuit. And if you took the human element out of it, it would do the exact same thing every single time, and it can be proven over and over. All right, good luck working on yourself. Bye.